You needn't think I'm crazy, Elliot. Plenty of others have queerer prejudices than this. Why don't you laugh at Oliver's grandfather, who won't ride in a motor? If I don't like that damned subway, it's my own business. And we got here more quickly anyhow in the taxi. We'd have to walk up the hill from Park Street if we'd taken the car. I know I'm more nervous than I was when you saw me last year, but you don't need to hold a clinic over it. There's plenty of reason, God knows, and I fancy I'm lucky to be sane at all. Why the third degree? You didn't used to be so inquisitive. Well, if you must hear it, I don't know why you shouldn't. Maybe you ought to, anyhow. For you kept writing me like a grieved parent when you heard I'd begun to cut the art club and keep away from Pickman. Now that he's disappeared, I go around to the club once in a while, but my nerves aren't what they were. No, I don't know what's become of Pickman, and I don't like to guess. You might have surmised I had some inside information when I dropped him, and that's why I don't want to think where he's gone. Let the police find what they can, it won't be much, judging from the fact that they don't know yet of the old North End place he hired under the name of Peters. I'm not sure that I could find it again myself, not that I'd ever try, even in broad daylight. Yes, I do know, or am afraid I know, why he maintained it. I'm coming to that. And I think you'll understand before I'm through why I don't tell the police. They would ask me to guide them, but I couldn't go back there, even if I knew the way. There was something there, and now I can't use the subway or... And you might as well have your laugh about this, too. Go down into cellars anymore. That, my friends, is from Pickman's Model, one of Lovecraft's most popular stories. So Pickman's Model was, or is, an incredibly popular story, Lovecraft story. It was probably written in September of 1926, and it was published in Weird Tales in October 1927. And this features one of H.P. Lovecraft's favorite characters, actually, Richard Upton Pickman. H.P. Lovecraft liked old Pickman quite a bit. You could tell that he did. And Pickman was an artist in Boston. And he was an incredibly talented artist, apparently. But his subject matter just happened to be terrifying. And his pictures were so disturbing that he got kicked out of the art club in Boston, and nobody would hang his paintings. They were just too gruesome and awful. Now, the narrator of this story, who's talking to his friend about Pickman, their mutual acquaintance, this narrator really likes Pickman's work. He recognized Pickman's talent. And so he went with Pickman one night to this shabby, rundown place in Boston, this kind of slum area in Boston where Pickman kept a little house that was a studio for him. Painted his pictures there, and he had a bunch of his paintings there. And so this guy, he wants to go and see Pickman's paintings because he recognizes Pickman's genius. So he goes there to this rundown place to look at Pickman's paintings, and they're just terrifying, these paintings. And every painting he sees, as he goes through this little place and sees these different paintings, they just become more and more horrible. And these paintings they all feature this one thing, and that was ghouls. Now, if you're unfamiliar with ghouls are creatures that like to eat dead people, and sometimes people that aren't dead yet. They just love to eat people, these ghouls. Now, H.P. Lovecraft had his own interesting version of what ghouls are. And they're pretty much these dog-headed humanoid creatures who live underground and might creep out at night to lurk around cemeteries and places like that and dig up bodies and eat them, as well as doing other creepy things. Ghouls are just creepy, creepy creatures. Really terrifying things, these ghouls. And all these paintings are about ghouls. And you have, there's one painting that particularly disturbed him, which is why he won't go in the subway anymore. And it was an attack on a subway car where the ghouls are just having a feast. And Lovecraft does a great job of describing all of these paintings. I mean, just all these horrible scenes of these ghouls doing what ghouls do, which makes you really wish that someone had painted all these ghoulish pictures. I'm sure somebody has. I haven't looked it up. I was reading out of this book here, the new annotated H.P. Lovecraft Beyond Arkham. And unfortunately, it doesn't have any versions of Pickman's paintings in it. I was kind of hoping it would, but it doesn't. It has mostly pictures of the places that are described in this story, which was the east end of Boston, I'm pretty sure. The north end of Boston, excuse me. It's got a little map of the north end of Boston there. These annotated editions of H.P. Lovecraft, this is the second one. They're just fantastic. Got a picture of the Boston Art Club there. And just a bunch of other stuff. I mean, these volumes, they're worth it. If you're interested in H.P. Lovecraft, great stuff in here in the annotated versions. The new annotated versions. So he's going through this place, and Pickman is showing him one terrifying picture after the other of these ghouls. And in the bottom of this place, there's a big well with a round wooden covering on top of the well that's in the basement there, which is just happens to be where the easel is set up for painting. And so they go through there, they check that out, and when they're in another room, they hear this sound, which is the sound of wood falling on or being scraped across brick or something like that. And at that point, you pretty much know where this story is going. I won't spoil it for you in case you can't figure it out, what's going on in this story. I don't know if this story has ever really surprised anybody with its surprise ending. I'm not sure that it does. But I will spoil one thing here. Spoiler alert for this very old Lovecraft story. Spoiler alert for Pickman's model. Ghouls are real in H.P. Lovecraft stories. And What? Oh, it's not a ghoul. It's not a ghoul. It's not. It looks kind of like one. It kind of has a ghoul's head, but it's not a ghoul. It's just a dog. I think. Hold on. Are you a ghoul? You can tell me. You can tell me the truth. Are you a ghoul, little one? Do you eat dead bodies? I think it's a ghoul. Are you a ghoul? Might be. It might be a ghoul. Go and eat some dead corpses. Go and eat some corpses. Might be a ghoul. All this time I've been thinking it was a dog, but there's something off about it. So I'm pretty sure it might be. Might be a ghoul. Anyway, Pickman was painting pictures of things that looked just like that. And so you can imagine how terrifying they were. And the narrator of this story, he describes himself as hard-boiled, like this hard-boiled tough guy. Yet every time he walks into a room with a painting, he starts screaming and whimpering. So pretty much he's a typical Lovecraft character. So anyway, obviously ghouls are real, and they're real in the story. And that's important because Pickman, the main character of this story, does make a triumphant return. And he makes a triumphant return in The Dream Quest of Unknown Kadath. One of H.P. Lovecraft's best works, I think. A terribly underrated fantasy story. The interesting thing is, people sometimes think of the dream works of H.P. Lovecraft because he had a whole series of dream stories featuring the dream world. And very often Lovecraft fans think of that as something separate from the Cthulhu mythos, but they all exist in the same twisted reality. You know, it is the further end of H.P. Lovecraft's reality. And whether the dream world is real and exists in an alternate dimension, or if it's really just the dreams of Randolph Carter, the main character of those stories, we don't know. We will be talking about that because I'm going to be talking about the dream stories, H.P. Lovecraft's dream stories. But before, like I said, we can get to Kadath, had to talk about this one because Pickman, the great creepy artist who hung out with ghouls, is going to be making an appearance in that, as well as another character from a very different story, which I'll be talking about next week. Eventually, we'll get to the Dream Quest, though. It probably will be a couple more weeks because I also have to talk about Randolph Carter, and I'm going to be doing a video on Randolph Carter as well. I'll probably do that the week after next. We'll see. So anyway, Pickman's model, the title says it all, is a really great story. It's tremendously entertaining, a little over the top in its descriptions, but that's okay. It's great. And that's why it's been anthologized so much. And actually, it's been adapted several times. It was a Night Gallery episode in 1971, I believe. It's been in comic books many times. It's that kind of story. It never gets old. So, Pickman's Model by H.P. Lovecraft, a terrifying story, your Mythos Monday for today. And hopefully I'll have a tag up for you tomorrow. I am going to be going up to the Rustic Vaughan Lodge, so I will be filming it from a very rustic setting, not the fabulous stately Vaughan Manor next time. That's the plan anyway, so hopefully the internet is working up there because it's kind of tricky. And if it does, I'll get that out to you. If not, it might be a couple days. Anyway, if you don't hear from me for a few days, I haven't been eaten by ghouls. I hope.